Good evening, guys. Welcome to Weekend Warrior Podcast. My name is Roan Heiberg, and with me tonight is Mr. Mark Himan. For those that don't know Mark likes to stab people. That's his claim. That's his claim to his claim to fame. I know he's going to deny it, but that's his thing and what he's known for in South Africa. And in my opinion, he's probably one of the go-to guys, if not the go-to guy, when it comes to specifically knife work. And that's where I heard about him the first time. So welcome on the show, Mark.
Excellent to be here, Ron, and ready for a good Sunday chat.
Did I introduce you correctly?
Yes, that's perfect. You make me sound like I'm a bit of a nutter.
Half the people that listen to this show are a little bit nuts, so it's okay.
We'll fit in.
Mark, take us back. I know about you since your days when you were still with Amok. I mean, that was ages ago. But take us back. Where did it all start for you? Where were you in school? How did you get into martial arts? You know, where did it start for Mark Himan?
I was an old Pretoria. I was born in Pretoria. Grew up in Pretoria. My son of a parabat. So I grew up in a parabat family, so we're exposed to that. Started martial arts as a young kid, about 10 years old. Obviously, we learned how to fight and how not to fight, and what worked and what didn't. And eventually grew up through Pretoria. Went to Tukkies, so I read Afrikaans better than most of the Afrikaans folks. that just doesn't sound like. Then once I'd done my military, I did my national service as a medic. I qualified as a biokinetist, only in the military world, not in the civilian world, because I never did my honors at Kentucky. So military was a good time for me. Finished that, came out, did a little bit in the fitness industry when the first old health and rackets ended. All the time I'd been competing in various martial arts, done the kempo, done the jiu-jitsu, loved the old funakushi. I still love the traditional arts, boxed it as much as I could, kind of amateurishly. And then I went on an adventure, got kicked off a martial arts team and decided to stay, and took about 8 years to get home.
Hold on, you got kicked off a martial arts team. What happened there?
That's a story for another day. That was, if I could go back, I'd probably kick myself as well. I was, always fighting, always that. If it didn't fit into normal and the way it's supposed to be, I'd be out there swearing and drinking and shouting at them for cheating and just. And as a matter of fact, I jumped off the train in London. And I started traveling. I spent about a year in England, ended up in the States, and continued with the martial arts, but ended up teaching school initially to kids from about 5 years old to about 11 as the sports teacher there, science teacher. And then after a year, one of the teachers came to me. I'd become the head teacher, said, we're looking for people that can fight. For a little more pay than a teacher's salary. So I ended up moving into the repossession and collection industry for about 6 years. So that was good fun. And there we learned we just won a few championships, all the rest of it. And you suddenly realize you're out on the street, what works and what doesn't. You get a bit of a wake up sometimes. So that's really, I'd always played with knives, made knives, but that's really where the necessity to really understand edge weapon work started. Chat to Kevin, and I'd go. That stage we weren't married. We weren't even going out. I'd go. Geez, I don't know how I made it through the day with the skills we were around, but we made it, so that's a good thing. But we had to start being constructive. So that started in about 1993, 94.
It's interesting that you said exactly that. I mean, in a previous conversation we had with, I'm sure you know, Mr. Dave Spalding, he said something very similar, that he went through a little, almost a, what's the word I'm looking for, a a moment where he realized, hold on, this is what they're teaching us, but what actually happens out there in the real world when guys are trying to kill you is not even remotely the same thing as what happens in a dojo or in a club. And you just said that about the repossession industry. Was there like a very specific moment for you where you got home and realized, yeah, shit, I'm actually not as prepared as I thought I was? Was there like a specific moment for you?
I don't think it was specific. I think it had gradually been coming over a few months or almost a year, and it really kept going. We've got to look at our edge weapon work. From the empty hand side of it, everything was pretty comfortable, but as soon as the edge weapons and other weapons came, and then the pot of hot oil came over the balcony when you were ringing the doorbell, diving to the snow. That was in the US at that stage. One thing, my view on martial arts is I still love the martial arts. I enjoy them very much. And I believe martial arts, a lot of guys that have good grounding in something like boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, and I've been through them all through the years, is they give you very good attributes, but the application is not always congruent with what's happening in the street. So there needs to be that trade-over so you get that measure of congruence. So let me say you get a martial artist, he's got very good attributes. You put him out there, the first time he'll get moved, but the second time, once he's made the adjustment and he can apply those attributes, nothing's ever wasted in life.
It's interesting that, in a previous conversation, one of your probably more well-known students and big proponents is Richie. And I know he's done a lot of work with you over the years, and he said something interesting as well about his students, that there's certain attributes that he looks for, and he figured out that guys that are or have been doing kind of other sports and other martial arts take to combatives and stuff much easier than guys that come from absolutely nowhere. Have you seen something similar in your classes?
Specifically from an attribute point of view. So, if the guys have to go back, there's a certain coordination they learn. It's not always the applicable skill, but he understands how to cross his center line. When you start teaching a concept, they'll catch it. And the key is this, as long as they keep their mind open to crossing over into a different space, those attributes are extremely valuable. And they teach.
Have you figured out that and this is kind of a new take on it, your background as a biokineticist, have you figured out that those skills about understanding biomechanics and that kind of stuff, it actually plays a role in how you apply certain techniques to fundamentals, because you understood certain concepts or kind of what happens behind the scenes in the body, where other guys would just teach it as gospel, but you actually understand the physical, mechanical side of what happens with the joints and basic movement and whatnot?
I think it applies from two sides. First of all, again, I need to stress that I'm not a qualified biokinetist in the height of mastery as a biokinetician. I did the sports sciences, and in the military, we shifted into the heart and back rehab, and obviously some of the sports rehab there. But yes, it has made a big difference. And linked to that is the mentality and psychology, to being able to bring those two things together. Because obviously the sports psychology thing, but bringing it into the combative world, there's a lot of crossover on the way you think about things. So, it's made a big difference. What it's allowed me to do more than anything is create frameworks on something. For example, in the martial arts world or in the gun world, I'll look at something and I'll break the mechanics down. I'll say, well, that's what he's doing. That's why he's doing it. That's where that foot works in, where that fails, where a lot of other people say, no, this is the way it's done. And I'll say, well, does it meet the objective, what you're trying to achieve?
I see my co-host is online with us. We had some technical difficulties. Greetings, Robs.
Hello, meneer. Good evening. Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Very good. You?
All right, thank you. Yeah, sorry, some telecom-related issues, but it's all sorted now.
Mark, so take us back to the mock days. Where did you? I just remember it briefly, and I've seen some of the concepts, but take us back to that time, because I think that was where I first heard about you. Was mock specific. Take us back a little bit to that time and the transition from there to where you are now.
Okay, well, that was great. I was still living in the States. As I mentioned, we had an edge weapon challenge out there, or weapons challenge out there. And because we're involved in the martial arts world, I said to Kelly, my wife fought on the Atlantic team at that stage. Well, she had finished up on the team, but she pretty much knew everyone. And I said, look, we've got to really look at our edge weapon side of it. It's missing a piece over there. So we were introduced into the AMOC system. It was a very critical stepping stone for me in my life, even though we're not part of it. And, we parted ways in our own special way, different in value and belief systems, different in the way we express things. And I'd invested 15 years into it at the stage that I broke away from that. We had branded, I think at that stage, edge weapon work in South Africa had become synonymous with that name. That's how it started. We brought it over, and it was a critical stepping stone in my thought process and my link into the Filipino martial arts, but in an applied context. I love the Filipino guys, and the mechanics, again, just like the martial arts, they have all the attributes. But at that stage, we're starting to look at the applications of it. So got back to South Africa in 1998. And fortunately, because of my dad and stuff, some of the military guys were looking for some stuff. It was never our intention to teach it in that context in the security industry and stuff. But because we had been working with it and had good successes there, we started getting asked to share our edge weapon skills with it. And living in Cape Town, we quickly adapted to the Cape Flat stuff and thought up some counters.
I wanted, you actually jumped the gun on me now, because I wanted to ask you about that specifically, because I have done some knife training, and I know Grobbie has done some as well. I'm not going to pretend to know even 100 of what you know, but I like to think I have a little bit of insight into it. But one thing that I've picked up in certain forums and Facebook about what guys are saying is that they see certain things that US guys are teaching and the Krav Maga guys are teaching, but a comment was made that put that guy against a Cape gangster whose whole life revolves around literally knife work, because that's kind of a thing there. And then and all of a sudden what these guys are teaching is not relevant in that context. Do you agree with that? And what's your thoughts on it?
Almost any time you ask me a question like that, I'm just going to slide over. I'm just going to kill something on my computer there.
Yeah, just to give a background, my idea about a knife fight or a proactive approach to knife fighting is to, as soon as a knife fight starts, you turn around and run away.
but we'll chase you. As long as you're practicing running, that's good.
It's always been all the knife fighting classes that we've done. I think the bottom line to it is you're going to get cut no matter what.
I always put my hand in here. So often the guys will ask me a question, do you carry around in the chamber? Don't you carry around in the chamber? It's almost like asking me the question with the edge weapon work and the flats will chop another guy up. My answer is yes. And let me go back to the gun analogy. Why would you carry around in the chamber? Well, it just makes total sense, doesn't it? You pull it out and shoot him, Why wouldn't you? Well, if I tell you to shove that in with your crotch without a holster, you're going to say, listen, let me clear the chamber. So, there's always that exception to the rule, but my thought process is this, and I always get into a little bit of trouble. I think good combat skills are universal. I've spent a lot of time in Brazil over the years. I've been in the States. I travel every year. I'm in the Philippines. A lot of the Filipino work, if you look at some of the older stuff, pretty much resembles what we see down here. My view on the Cape Flats guy that we meet on the street, and I'll get into how we see it. Since COVID broke down, I've been out running food truck escorts and food details. We bump the guys out there. And my view on that is some of those guys have great killing experience, but they don't have great blade edge weapon skills. So yes, there are always idiosyncrasies to a local region that you have to take care of. But that if you really understand it, and that's why I think the sports sciences break down. If I sit and break down where footwork fits in, if we look at a guy fighting like that, they will fight with something with negative pressure. Most of the guys that are working blade work in a formal setting, there's some guys really pushing it around the world. But working in the traditional settings, they will be working in a neutral pressure. So they never learn to go with a guy that denies them their skill set. But those skills are universal. Go look in a Brazilian prison, look in our prison, the shankings are pretty much the same. There is an idiosyncrasy over here, and there's a mindset over here that they're prepared to. So you're more dealing with a mindset than a skill set.
Yeah, no, we honest. It's like, we're honest. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not necessarily. It's like you said, it's a mindset, and then I suppose it's their fundamentals, and I think some of the fundamentals, if your fundamentals are good, and again alluding back to that first statement, like I made, it's like you're gonna get cut, but if your fundamentals are good, you'll prevail. It's just that, like you said, their mindset. Is much more in tune for survival and for the combative part, which a lot of people actually lack, in even in the self-defense community.
Yeah, their mindset's purely predatory. As soon as they're engaged and they realize they're in a fight, then it's not so much fun for them anymore. And we started pretty early on, 2003. 2002, 2003, we were actually dealing with a company that was dealing with them consistently. The Mountain Men. They're a company in Cape Town over here, and they approached us. I met old Alan Dillon on a course there, and we quickly realized, there was this big thing that if you bump into a guy that comes from the flats, he's going to stab you, and he can, and it's true, and you better not ignore it. If you don't understand what they're doing, he'll kill you, and by trying to apply a traditional skill set against that, you're going to come short. You have to deny him his skill set. And the guys would be reaching in there. And probably so I'm going to be a little bit of an ass, because I don't believe in getting cut in a knife fight. I believe in cutting the other guy. And and what I mean by that is that mindset of I'm going to get cut often leads to a skill set where the guy will say, take the cut on your outside of the arm.
Yeah,
I'm quite
that's it.
Give a cut on the outside of his arm and watch his wrist flop over the wrong way. My mindset is yours. It's a rephrasing of what you just said. I do everything not to get cut. If he cuts me, he pays for it, and I'll repair it afterwards.
No, look, it's always there's a little bit tongue in cheek, but the reality, it's like if I explain to my kids, if you ride a bicycle, the chances are good that you're going to fall off the bicycle. If I'm fighting and playing or employing knives in a knife situation, invariably the percentage or you're much more likely to get cut. Hence, hence I know, especially and like any skill set, like I think at your level, I think you're very much. I would believe you if you said, you probably won't get cut. In our basic, in our lower level of approach, that's one of the things that we tend to try. And then I think left of bang, the principle is we tend to try and avoid getting to that position where we need to employ a knife very close or in some sort of situation. It's the stark reality of it is knife fights really aren't pretty. I think anybody that's watching this, you understand it. I understand what it looks like. You understand how to defend against and fight with them. But I think a lot of people don't understand the ferocity and the speed and the actual the craziness of knife fights. Hence, like the left of bang theory is like I try to avoid it and run away from them most of the time.
You're 100% right, and from my point of view, it's really just a semantics thing. And when I go back to the psychology thing, I tell the guys, don't expect to get cut. The probability is there. Get cut, deal with it then.
Yes.
That perception that I'm going to get cut often leads the guys into things that, all right, I'll try grab this when I shouldn't. So I say everything in the world not to get cut. If he cuts you, make him pay for it. The probability of getting very high in a knife fight, but it's the way you approach it mentally. So I ruffled some feathers in the States on the forums. You will expect to get cut in a knife fight. I said, no, thank you. I'm not getting cut. I don't want to go. I want to go. But the reality is, through the years, I've taken a few nicks. I've probably cut myself worse in solo than I've been cut in the street. So prepare for the race, No,
that's precisely almost. I'm not saying a defeatist mentality about it. It's just it's like a lot of people, even when they come to firearms, a lot of people make the decision to get it for a self-defense application. But they haven't looked at the moral and their psychological approach to actually employing that tool. And so if you want to use it defensively, sometimes you need to shoot people defensively. And in the case of a knife, sometimes it's all you have in a particular situation. You must. It's not rising to the occasion. It's falling to your training. And again, I think I would love to, and that's one of the things. The point I'm trying to reiterate is that you need to be a practiced martial artist in terms of knives to know what you are doing and to do it well. Yeah. So again, that's why I carry a gun. That's why I know how to shoot people from very far away.
Mark, so one thing as a point, so, and I now need to choose my words very carefully because before some person accused me of stereotyping, but are there certain kind of indicators or no, it's a two-pronged question. Are there certain indicators where you will be approached by an individual and you see there's a knife in play, and then the way he handles it or the way he deals with it, pulls it, holds it, whatever, that's red lights for you. As in, okay, hold on. Obviously, there's a knife. It's danger, but I'm talking about kind of nuances and little things that you pick up that will. Okay, hold on. This is not some mugu that picked up a kitchen knife yesterday morning. This is somebody that he's had some time dealing, using a knife for nefarious purposes. That's one side of the question. And did that change, or have you seen certain things? For example, how white, colored, black, or whatever guys will utilize a knife, if that makes sense. Certain things that you can specifically look out for.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is what you're speaking about is, if I simplify what you said, is you're looking for a recognition skill and linking that to an action. So for the guys, some of the guys talking military terms, they call it an UDIV loop. I call it a reactive loop, but it's really the same thing. When you see something, put in the appropriate response in. I'm going to bounce around a little bit, and Krobis will bounce in here as well. Often, I hear the saying, keep it simple, stupid. And I go, well, that's actually retarded because it is stupid. You need to keep it simple, smart. And what I mean by that is if you only have one skill set, when that person, and you're asking about those nuances, changes what you expect, or you make a perception about the way someone's going to attack you, and you only have one way of dealing it. It's almost like with a gun work. If you've got to take a 1,000-yard shot, you employ your long rifle, don't sit there and blunk away with your handgun. One of your biggest things is to recognize what they're doing. So if I could maybe speak about that, there's 3 types of recognition skills I look at. The first one would be your situational recognition skills. Where are you? What environment are you in? And there's a lot of things that go with that. The second one is what I term autonomic recognition skills. That's, the guy clenching his fists, wiping his hands, all the nervous. How do you know he's going to push clap you in the next 2 seconds? And then finally...
Sorry, Mark, you just won the prize for the first guy to drop the P-bomb on Weekend Warrior podcast. Congratulations.
Cheers.
PK is a PK.
And then,
sorry, go on.
And then there's 2 other types of recognition skills that we really have to deal with. And I term them mechanical recognition skills. I break them into fight precursors. So as someone's approaching, how do you recognize they have a blade in their hand? How do you recognize them accessing it? All those sorts of things. And I spent a lot of time developing those recognition skills. And those are big things that need to be done in low light. So it's not just the guys will say, be aware, watch their hands. No, it's not. It's a lot more than that. But the key is to link an action. And when the last type of recognition skill out of the mechanical side is in-fight recognition skills. So I'll give you an example. You've learned in class, guy comes in, you crash with this hand, you punch and you get your grip or whatever it is. And that, if you don't recognize that the guy attacking you's got his other hand in front, I'm standing up, I'm looking a bit excited here. Let me get a knife out here as well. Someone attacking you with a big thrust, that'll work. But if someone attacks with a negative pressure and they pull him back, that destroys that skill set. So you have to have a framework for what pressure is dictating the tactic involved. Am I going to disengage? Am I going to crash? Am I going to be somewhere in the middle with the neutral pressure? And those are the key recognition skills that make it universal, that allows you to deal with a guy from a different culture. Now, the biggest thing I said is mindset, and Robert and I spoke about it. There's a lot of guys out here with killing skill, and people confuse that with skill, with martial. He's got the mindset, and he's got a few little tips and tricks. And if you don't have a framework of recognition skills, you'll never pick that up. His whole job is to fool you into not recognizing the attack, to attack you, not fight you. So recognition skills are critical. Culturally, got back to Cape Town in 98. I never grew up in Cape Town. I grew up in Pretoria. So there it was just the bigger knife you could find was the better. I was suddenly in the world of copies and reverse grip and all the rest of it. And there's a strange phenomenon. Over the years, we've seen what we saw, copy, reverse grip coming out. We have a whole migrant population coming in here. So now we're finding guys with their mom's biggest kitchen knife in forward grip, front hand forward grip. And you tell me, this is how knife attacks happen. So when the guys say, how do knife attacks happen? Any which way you can. Yeah. You can imagine it, they will do it. Some guy will run at you with it out in front there. Some guy will friggin' run and grab and stab and pull back. Another guy will grab you around the neck and shank you. And if you don't recognize the pressures and you can't adjust to that, you die. Wrong technique in excellent, beautiful technique, wrong pressure, you die.
Yeah.
Did you? One thing that I've kind of picked up now. I have some combatives background, but one thing that I've picked up on, and I'm now kind of sharing everybody over the same comb. It's not intended that way, but I see some stuff on Facebook and on YouTube and on all the regular pages, and then I look. Okay, so they have a solution to a knife problem. And I look at the technique and I think to myself, dude, this is just way too complicated. It's got too many steps, too many little thingies. It relies on little wrist locks and thingies that needs to work beautifully for this thing to work in a ridiculously dynamic and dangerous situation. Do you see the same thing? Or would you agree that when it comes to defending yourself against a knife, the simpler it is, in all likelihood, the better it will be?
Ruan, I need to answer that in a difficult way. The key to actually applying good edge weapon work and being successful is, how do you, people oversimplify edge weapon work, but how do you make it simple in the moment? So yes, I see too many things fitting in, and the reason that fits in beautifully, and don't doubt me, those attributes are phenomenal. You know, if you can run a sombrado against somebody beautifully, and you can catch your disarms out of it, they're mostly done in what I call a neutral pressure in the class environment and stuff. When a guy changes that pressure, either by massive forward pressure or pulling back, he changes it out. So the job is to link a recognition skill, so that complex then of recognizing the change of pressure to see what you link with it has to be made extremely simple. But you cannot oversimplify and say, if a guy does this run, if a guy does this grab his arm, you need to have that almost pendulum that it swings along from breaking out to crashing in. And the tendency is the guys look for a finite solution to this problem to make it simple, because they want to have a gross motor skill. You're not going to be able to think. Well, embed some skills. But just like you said, if you're going tappy, 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 tappy and looking for a small wrist lock or a classic disarm, that's not going to be available unless you create it.
How realistic?
Carry on.
How realistic? Once again, general question, general answer. All right. How realistic do you think is the majority of knife disarms that you see on social media? That's a difficult question, and it might get you some hate mail.
You know, there's a good thing, and the best compliance you can get is pain. And somebody starts attacking you and he's 100% and he's in good, perfect shape, that disarm is highly unrealistic. But, you know, cut his wrist, kick him in the groin, stab him a little bit, and then anything becomes possible as he becomes more pliable. But while this guy's 100% are fighting over there, those things don't always fit into that space. And
it's the OODA loop.
Carries over.
It's literally that OODA loop. While he's interrupting your loops, you need to do the adjustments. And it's like you said, you have to create some space. Otherwise, you keep on having to make adjustments. You have to change his. I read a fantastic article the other day. It's that you have to, the mob mentality. When you start engaging the mob, you need to, like right then, the mob is strong and everybody's seeing chance and there's power in the mob. You have to engage them enough so that you change their mind about the group strength. And all of a sudden, and it's like you're saying, it's like that mentality. It doesn't help even if you can identify what's happening. It's like you're saying, it's like if you're in what position, neutral position or what. If you don't have the skill set to either identify it or to counter it, yes, it must be tough to teach that though. How do you go about setting the baseline for that?
Well, the biggest thing is to practice. You lay the framework and set it out. So, an example, we run classes over there. We'll teach the most common pressures and all the variations. Like I said, you practice with something that's 100% perfect, and some idiot stabs you because he stabbed you wrong. Because he attacked like an idiot, you know. So you have to recognize that if you want to call it that framework, the recognition skill to see where he's fitting, and you have to link an appropriate action, and that's the key to training it. So when you look at it, you know, I saw years ago there was a group of guys doing very good work in the edge weapon work. I'll never take anything away from them, but they'd found a technique that worked very nicely in a particular situation. And they made a whole video, and then they started trying to apply it under maximum resistance and stuff. And the guys started changing the pressure, and the guys were going, that technique shit. It wasn't a shit technique. It's just where you apply what. Sometimes you got to crash. Sometimes you got to break out.
Yeah, we picked that up. We picked that up with one of our last combative training sessions. We had for a period we were getting heavy deep into our jiu-jitsu, and what happened is when we did a nice refresher combative class, all of a sudden jiu-jitsu, the game is normally you try and get somebody close to you, and you want to wrap and stop their movement or limit their movement. And we quickly found out it's probably not the best tactic most of the times in a combative situation where you want to strike away and create some space. Look, there is certain points or certain times that you want to pull that attacker closer. But in most of the combative, when we started doing it in practice, all of a sudden we saw that most of the times it was actually not a good idea to try and grab a hold of the bad guy.
That's if someone's let's put you in a shank situation. Guys got you around the neck shanking you. If you don't start controlling the limb, you die. But if the guys trying to get that and you try to reach into that space, you're going to die. And you start trying to control that room. So it's about recognizing where you are in what he's doing. And one of the biggest things I teach is denying your opponent their skill set. If you can recognize what they're doing with the recognition skills, one of the easiest things we do now is we go out into we work with a team. A guy pulls a knife and he wants to run in start fighting. What do? We pepper gas him and move him with a baton,
you maybe I was watching a video clip about guys, when kind of ASP batons were kind of like it's quite popular now, but it was it had a little bit of a growth spurt a couple of years ago, and there was these guys teaching, like it was fancy stuff with an ASP, locks, head locks, arm locks, shoulder locks, leg locks, and it looked phenomenal on the video. It looked excellent. So they talked to this old cop, and you could see on the video he's a little bit, he's done a few arrests, and he's got a few notches on his gun belt, and they basically asked his opinion on kind of how do you. It's like, and I'm paraphrasing, because it was a US video. It's like basically comes down to, I just murder them. It's just that's good. It works. let's not overcomplicate it. It's a mudding tool, and let's use it as a mudding tool. And it's like you're saying, sometimes it just needs to get shot or pepper spray. It'll solve the problem. There's no need to get into a fight if you don't need to.
Yeah, don't let them use their skill set, because you deal with a guy that lives with his knife. He thinks he's not necessarily practicing, but he's thinking about how he's going to put it in you probably half the day. He's grown up with it. It's a natural thing for him. And now you're going to go and try to play with him. No, just don't let him do what he's good at, and do what you're good at.
Yeah.
So
hence my previous statement. I tend to I'll shoot at him while I'm running away from a big knife. So yeah.
Yeah. And the first option, is always to disengage. But then this is why I get into trouble, Krobbies. I'll tell the guy telling you to run is probably the oak with the belt hanging over his fucking knees.
Yes.
Really make it, but he's telling you the best thing to do in a kniff fight is run. I tell the guys,
I'm that guy.
If you're going to run, you've got to set up.
One of the points.
Yeah, however you do it, in between you, maybe deal with something for a moment, whatever. But if you just turn your back and in the wrong pressure, he's on you. And people are like, hey, untrained people.
So Mark, let's fast forward a little bit. So I've seen, you've kind of, if I say kind of, it sounds like it happened yesterday, but it didn't. The last number of years, you've kind of find your way into the more firearms focused work, or it's a very large part of what you do, you know, the vehicle combatives, the fighting in the dark and whatnot. Take us a little bit into the gun work. How did that start? Was it always part of it? How do you see that part of what you do?
Look, I grew up in a gun world, but as a lighty, it was never really pistol work. You know, I grew up with rifles, standard carbine, shotgun, all those sort of things. In our family, the old Star B sat in the safe, and it was pulled out as a hobby shot. So, you know, everything was rifle. But when we got back to South Africa in 1998, one of the biggest things, it was a really good contract for us, and we started setting the thing is, how do we deal with people getting stabbed with and for their firearms? I mean, for their firearms. So, you know, and the guys would say, bring a knife to a gunfight. And we quickly showed the guys, you know, let's take it down. But they came to us with a problem. So we started approaching the gun world from a knife world and saying, how do I kill a guy with a gun? How do I kill a guy with a gun? How do I kill a guy with a gun? And then we said, how do we counter this? And we started working and developing in that. And we started that almost in 98, the moment we got back. My formal stuff in the gun world was this earlier. I think it was 2002. We did the old John Farnham courses. I loved.
Yes.
That was a real formal introduction into. Did his course 2001, 2002. You know, before that, you know, this finger in the trigger was not like such an important thing in my world. You know? So now it's gospel. You know, we're just grown up with guns, and reasonable safety and stuff, but that was really a formal introduction. And from there, I don't think many of the guys realize that we're running vehicle courses. We started running those in 2006 already, developing, taking problems, solving them. What runs in some of the guys that are running in the States, I took over there in 2009 already. And today, probably one of the biggest things we work with is our close range pistol work, and then our vehicle stuff. So we just grew into that. Obviously, I was always one of the guys that was going, why do I need to formalize my gun world? You know, at that stage, the IPA had started coming out. I was like, well, I got my John Farnham. And then I just realized by 2006, 2007, if I don't do this, I'm going to miss out on a lot of work. And it was actually a very good thing. Check the box, did the whole thing on that side, but kept my combative side. So I've divided my gun world into, that is critical to check your box. You need that. That's what allows us to have guns in this society. And then we've just pushed the boundaries on pretty much everything. And we've been pushing since 2000. The only thing that I haven't done is go and shoot competitively, in the sense of a lot of guys' names grow very quickly because they shot competitively once. And I really think sport shooting is great for the combative world as well. But that's the only thing I haven't done. We've always dealt with a problem. If a problem arises, we've gone and problem solved. And it's been good for us. We've ended up with military contracts locally, internationally, police, security. And
we believe very, very big in terms of a proficiency. Not everybody is as lucky to have how can I say it, a vocation or a job that's based in space and time, that they can do their pistol and their rifle and stuff work. So we actually recommend it, especially for people that don't necessarily have that time to get the proficiency, where like sports shooting is a very good place to become proficient in handling your firearm or whatever it is. Yeah.
I see sports shooting very much as almost like the martial arts as is to edge weapons work. Those attributes are phenomenal. It's easy. It's the click to make that transfer into the combative world. So I'm very happy to have a sports shooter on my class. I don't have to worry about sweep. Well, sometimes you do, but
yes. That was my next comment. Is like the safety element, where a sports shooter tend to be much more competent, safer shooter than somebody that's pretty raw from the streets, from the hood.
Yeah,
you know, and what happens is I've picked up. You know, you'll see guys have a lot of negative stuff to say about sport. Yeah, but it's not realistic and it's not
It'll get
tactical.
you killed
And
in the
it's I'm like,
streets. Yeah.
I said, dude, really? Nah? All of us, does your gun magically work different because somebody is now shooting back at you? You still need to pull the trigger. You still need to drop the slide. You still need to get a sight picture. You still need the mag still goes in the same way, you know. And I've said to somebody that sport shooting is not training; it's practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And if you can see it for what it is, because like Robert said, it's still solid fundamentals. It's still there's not all the pressure, but there's still a little bit of pressure, you know, with the timer, and it varies the whole time. So you're forced to think on your feet a little bit. But I agree with you completely, Mark, that if you can make that kind of see the difference and where it relates to and where it doesn't, it just makes a lot of sense. And a guy that has that background, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but if you've been doing that for a while and he comes onto one of your courses, for you as an instructor, it's easier, like you say, because you do not need to worry about certain things. But for that guy, he doesn't now need to worry about certain things either. He can just focus on kind of listening to what you're saying, applying to what you're teaching him, and his benefit that he will get from a course with you or any other instructor will be so much more, because he can already do the basic stuff. You don't need to spend time now teaching him how to load how to do an emergency reload correctly.
Yeah, you know, and I've always said, the guy says, should I do sport? I said, go do it. It's going to give you trigger time. It's going to get you used to your gun. You get used to the mechanics. You have good sport shooters where they put their front sight, they most time. You know, so you run through that, and I believe those attributes are pretty important. You know, me on the combative side, the guys don't see me shooting. I ended up shooting a few times. I don't do too cock, but I don't shoot any tournaments with the guys. I shoot with the guys that shoot there. But I believe a lot of sports attributes have carried over into the combat world, and we use a lot of those. If you look at through history, from the old cowboy gunslingers, Jelly Bryce and those guys, to today, how did they choose? How did they select their old rangers? They held competition, and Bryce goes in and wins it. They say, "Yes, you're a cop." I believe very much sport shooting attributes can carry into the combative world. From me as a combative guy, don't go to a sports shooter and try to take your world into his world. I've been working in the field 5 months now over here. If I had to count the number of times a shotgun's been in and out of the car and been everywhere in that car, and when the tires are burning, that shotgun comes out, somebody gets swept. We do everything to avoid it. But you know, that's the mindset, guys. You know, there's range safety and there's field safety. How do you make a decision?
We had a new guy, and I took him through just a quick one on Saturday, last week Saturday, and those 4 rules, you try and not break any of them at any time, but if you break one of them and you keep the other 3, you'll be all right. And it's like you said, the field safety, and in real life, we've seen combative courses where the guys even struggle drawing in the car, because it's like you practice without live guns, and at a point in time you say, dude, you're gonna sweep yourself in the car. Just keep your booger hooker off, or use different fundamentals. It's just understand that there's like in real life and in sports, like you said, don't get a defensive guy into a sport shooting box. He's going to get very upset quickly, very, very unhappy.
Yeah, and that's true. And the guys, when they make that decision, that doesn't mean that you've got to compromise safety out there. You have to train field safety as well. It's something that needs to be embedded and trained. I'm not saying just because you do that on the range, because it's not the same in the field, that you're ignoring safety. You really have to embed those. You have to concentrate on improving field safety.
Yeah, we've been involved with some other like sport shooting adventure and some CPF units and all kinds of different situations. And something that sort of stood out, and if you have a conversation with anybody, is that some of these CPF units and people respond with their own firearms, and then they are in a group situation, and never mind that they don't even have a sports background or the safety background. Now you throw them in a mix in terms of like you said, a field safety in a field scenario with multiple people. All of a sudden, one of the comments I made to a colleague was, I think it's safer if you stay away from any response, because the response is probably going to get us killed.
Yeah. I always tell them, I'm going to hide behind the electric box. You guys carry on.
It's so funny. About 2 years ago, no, I'm lying, about 3 or 4. We got called in, a few of us, to assist with a handgun range day for a certain organization. Yes, and these guys rocked up, and you can imagine the demographic now, Mark. I'm very careful not to step on too many toes now, but let's just say I could talk a lot of Afrikaans at this thing, and these guys are all, fear and vlam. They're gonna. You can't teach me anything.
Yeah.
And
what radio is going off there? What radio is that?
Say again?
Yeah, Mark's got a radio there that's tuning in something. Battery flat.
And we were working on this thing with these guys, and I realized very quickly that a lot of guys that rock up and do things with guns, meaning well while they are doing it, I'm not taking that away from anybody, really have no business doing what they are doing, because they're either going to get themselves or somebody else killed in the process, because they simply do not have the faintest idea about how to really use a handgun defensively, and it's scary, and it gets to that point where, actually, you know what, I don't want your help. Sorry, I just thank you. If you want to help me, phone the cops or ADT or whoever can come and help. That's a discussion for another day. But do you see the same thing in your classes, that guys come in with this
very rough
delusions
like
of grandeur about their skill set? Because I was on the grens 40 years ago, and you can't teach me anything new. And then it just goes pear-shaped in class. Do you get the same thing?
I must admit, I'm pretty lucky in the sense, and I think it's maybe because of the way we structure classes. When the guys arrive there, the first thing I do is string guns and make the guys moor each other. So a lot of time on range safety and stuff like that. So I've kind of learned to deal with those guys, because, I've had combative guys on my course, and there's a guy that's probably put more lead in most people I can imagine in the world. And the first time he arrived on my course, he arrived there and he took his gun out of the back of his pants behind my back and was clicking it and stuff. And I go,
wow, good times.
Yes, I'm never going to get to shoot as many people as he ever shot in my whole entire life. But so the way you handle a person like that is, you can either be an asshole, or you can say, listen, come over here. We have the luxury of working on this range. Let's run through this. As a matter of fact, when he comes on the courses now, he's so strict on his kids that he was going to teach. Their range safety is better, and his range safety is better than anyone. So the way you approach those sort of guys, there's a lot of guys out there with a lot of experience that don't run our classic safeties, and they're just never worried about it. And we have this perception that if the guy has his finger on the trigger, that he doesn't know how to shoot you in the friggin' head. He's probably put a pillow over your head and shoot you. But the point, you've got to handle those people in the right way, and they have a lot of tactical experience. They just didn't run the formal safeties like we ran. And on the other side, you got to take a sport shooter and say, listen, we're going to formalize fields. This is a range drill, and we're going to run the range drill with paintballs. We're going to run the range drill with We're going to run the range drill with live fire, and then we're going to do a field drill. And yes, we're not going to run it live fire today, but if we don't do that, you're not going to have that skill set out on the street. So you don't want to go to a range and get kicked off because you look like an ass. But you have to formalize field safety as well.
How busy is the training at the moment? Are you guys picking up slots now with lockdown, or what's happening?
Yeah, we've been very, very lucky. Basically, everything fell off the bus when lockdown came in. All my overseas trips fell away. I think I was supposed to be in the US right now. Switzerland fell away. Thailand's gone. So over here, I ended up working in the field as like a, if you want to call it, a security guard.
A real cowboy.
Yeah. We get to do that. I work with one of the companies, and then the other one running escorts. My clients have been in there. One of my clients in Gauteng, they've been in 14 shootings in the space of the lockdown. So we get to.
What?
They've employed us partially to go and debrief those shootings, see if the training's congruent, and obviously healing processes because they've had 4 guys wounded in those. So, and this weekend is my first weekend where I've had enough bookings to say I actually don't have to go work in the field. I do it out of choice. Normally with my clients, I always try to go, all right, I'm designing a course for you. Let's go see what you're actually facing. So I do that sort of thing, but I've never been out of necessity continuously over the last 5 or 6 years. So these last lockdown periods, we were working. I was not teaching shit. I was making notes on escorts.
So, while we're talking about your training, I see you guys are offering the rusty gunfighter. What is it called?
Yeah, last name brand we came up with. We branded it very nicely, the Rusty Gunman. I run all our civilian courses, or most of our civilian courses, under the Rusty Gunman brand. A little bit of gear there and stuff like that. But it's amazing. The guys think, they come in, dust their pistol off, but we run pretty decent stuff and tactical stuff that links in. So we have certain objectives that they're going to achieve. I ran a concealed carry one the other day. We're doing a low light shoot on Wednesday again. The following Wednesday, I've got shotgun, just running your loads. So we made very finite courses over there. And then our bigger courses, our vehicle courses, are obviously come back on. And then we do some non-gun related. We run counter abduction courses as well.
So that sounds very interesting. Who would you run that for?
We'll probably run this one in Joburg because the last one got cancelled. But that's a 2.5-day course and that's civilians. And we get a lot of guys that from the military world. I've done escape and evasion, and they bring their wife, and his wife. Their wives do better than them. So.
That was my question. It's like I suppose the counter abduction courses should be to the more vulnerable ones in our families. So maybe your wives and daughters and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's great. I put my daughter on it a few times. She got bruised up. She was in tears. She bit the trainer and all the rest, and got cut on the inside of her arm. And you do this, but she did it with me in Thailand, and she did it locally, and she's in Seattle right now, and the crap that's going on there. So she's had 2 bus incidences where that stuff has just kicked in and helped her out already. So
really, wow, that is crazy, dude. My daughter is 18, and she's aiming to go do stuff over the ponds. And one of the things that yes, I need to spend more time, like the more physical and the more proactive threat assessment and figuring it out when it's coming. Yeah, I know it's hard. So that must have been quite tough with her in Seattle all the time, man. I assume she's doing all right now.
No, she's fine. She's carrying on and studying, and it's her birthday. She's skydiving today, so.
Good times.
She's turning 20. She turned 20 today, so.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Mark, the one thing, so you do run all this, like you said, the Rusty Gunman range of courses.
Yes.
So how do you deal with complete unknown guys coming into class? So let's say you're running a vehicle course, and I think we'll both agree that vehicles are not to be taken lightly. So do you prefer guys you come on a rusty gunman so you know what you're dealing with, and if you don't know them, that you know what you're dealing with in a more advanced class, or how do you? Yeah.
Very much. We'll have a lot of our entry level courses. So we'll run a rusty gunman, and we'll have a rusty gunman level up. And that's the guy getting into his firearm and getting to use it. Normally, if he wants to come on a vehicle course, we say, no, you can't come on it till you've been on that sort of course. If I'm doing a cornering and clearing course, I also expect him to be there. Unless I'm running a very finite thing, like a 3-hour thing, and I know we're going to break it down and we're just going to do very limited skills. The other thing is, if I get guys coming from a few select instructors around the country, so there's some very good instructors out there. It's kind of love-hate because we're all competition and don't like what that arsehole does. But I know if that guy comes from that particular trainer, and he's worked with them a little bit, I just do a quick assessment, and normally they can fit onto this stuff. There's quite a few good trainers that totally different backgrounds to me. Some sport shooters, some very combative, some out of the PFTC world, and some out of other combatives world. If they've come through that particular instructor, I can kind of say, all right, who we train with. We do a pre-interview, and obviously right of admission reserved,
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. There's always, like I said, a bit of competition and different opinions. And Dave Spalding made the excellent point, and he kind of broke it down. He said that we can't all have the same opinion, because if everybody had the same opinion, nobody would have a job, because everybody would know exactly what to do. And that for me kind of hit, to the heart of the matter. And I usually tell guys, if you're new into shooting, and like who are you supposed to train with? Who's the players in the market? And usually, I'm very sure you see this as well. Guys will find stuff on YouTube from random people, and they see this is amazing. This is awesome. And it usually is a bunch of fluff that's been produced to look really, really cool. But I tell them, hey, there's a lot of info out there, but there's usually a little golden thread that runs through all of this. And yes, there are certain things that guys might disagree with, but it's usually small things that you might do something differently than so or so or so, and he might do it differently than you and whatever. But at fundamental level, all of the guys agree with certain things. The really important stuff that we all know works, usually we'll all agree that there are certain things that's a good idea to do it this way. And if whoever you're choosing to train with is all of a sudden got this ridiculous way out idea that doesn't fit into kind of any of the big guys, that should be a red light that maybe I shouldn't give this guy my money. But yes, the guys get so stuck on one way and one instructor, and they kind of refuse to open their minds. It's sad, really.
Yeah, we've had a few interesting experiences. I mean, I have a saying to the guys when they come on my course, I don't do your fighting for you. Take what you like and leave what you don't. Because I have my skill set. It's worked for me. It's great. I'm transferring that to you. I believe I do it well. But I don't live your life. I don't have the same moral value belief system. I don't have the same attributes as you. And, you may pick something up from another trainer that makes sense for you in your environment. So pick as much as an individual, train as much as you can with different people. It's nice that people are loyal to me and I have my regular guys, but I always encourage them to spend some time with the other guys. Sometimes they come back, they say, hey, I picked this up. I said, well, I don't really do that, but does it suit you? He says, yes. Or he goes, that guy was an asshole. I said, well, that's fine. Did you learn something? And I've been on a course where the guys get so indoctrinated, and this is particularly an American thing, and I learn a
Dogma,
lot
yeah.
over. I teach over there, but I also learn from the guys and share skills with them. But you'll get a guy come on the course, and he gets so bred in because you got a knife and a knife in one hand and a blade. Why would you ever do that? You should always have two hands on your gun. And I'm like, and it doesn't matter what you tell him or demonstrate to him. He'll go, so and so says. And they'll reach across and they'll have a draw technique. And I'll say, well, I have no problem with you doing that, but you're going to do a lot of one-handed shooting. Why would you ever not have two hands? And then his mind's off. And I have a very good friend over there, Mike Blackgrave, who were teaching a particular course. And I was running AR platform with the guys. I was running an AR course with the guys, fire and movement. And we had this one guy, all tactical, nice Korean-looking guy, with glasses, everything. He kept saying, but so-and-so says, and so-and-so says. And I don't mind that, I said, run it this way. And I was talking about manipulating your safety when you change your magazine. And so I said, look, my sight's on the guy. There's certain guys that will manipulate that magazine, but in that situation, I don't worry about manipulating my safety on the magazine. Oh my God, the poor guy nearly freaked out. If you don't put your safety on because so-and-so says, so Mike's the great, he says, well, why don't you just fuck off the range and go play with so-and-so because you're not learning anything. Come back. One of the,
that's the strangest thing, and I've seen it before in classes that I've done and been with and assisted on, is that why would you pay $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, whatever the course costs? Why would you pay the money, pitch up, and not be willing or open, to learn? And it just boggles my mind. And somebody that very well, Brian Menny, he wrote an article about it a couple of years ago. He said that how to prepare yourself for your shooting course, and that's recommended reading. If it's the first time you come onto any combatives or shooting course, go and read the article. But I find it fascinating. Why would you pay this guy to teach me something and then pitch up, not willing to learn? It just, maybe I'm oversimplifying it or thinking about it too hard or whatever, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not saying a weird phenomenon, but a lot of guys go to training more than to learn is to validate what they're doing. And when it conflicts with them, they kind of go in there and they'll go, oh shit, they conflict. You break some people's whole reality base, I've had guys that go on my course this last week and the whole guy's world was shattered because I said, listen, you're welcome to carry an empty chamber to start your fight, but after your first round and I tell you to reholster, you're going to have time to clear your chamber every time because we're gonna shoot a string of 3 and a string of 4 and a string of 5. And there's a guy, he had to make a big mindset shift because you actually took away the validation for why he was carrying the way he was carrying.
Yeah.
So they go on your course to validate what they're doing, and when it conflicts, sometimes they've invested so much in it. Now, me in my life, I'm very picky who I go train with these days. But if I go on a course, if I learn one thing new, because that's all we do is train and evaluate stuff, I learn one thing new to do and one thing new not to do. Hey, my money's well spent.
That's a good course. That's a good course.
And
so on that topic, just a quick one. A lot of people don't necessarily have the benefit of training that's accessible to them, and long story short, just a couple of names that you would ascribe to and say maybe on YouTube, that type of thing, that you think actually have the same level or the same thought process and fundamentals that you would subscribe to?
Look, I don't know if their skill sets are going to overlap 100%. Often I see guys doing really good combat. Look at their knife work and go, all right, well, at least they got mindset.
Yeah.
Bastard, so if we look at our broader thing in South African environment, I like Dean Nevo down in Durban. I don't know if you guys know of him at all.
Yes.
Very smart guy. I've taught together with him. Obviously, you guys are associated with Arno. So the guys that have come through him, I know their gun fundamentals are good and their mindset's in a good place. Andre Rosley up in Pretoria. I've guys boost my own guys, but I've got Clint Westson, Robert Ciparelli up in Joburg and some newer trainers over there. So, those are the guys in the combative side. I don't like to go into the sporting world because that's really not my place to go there, you know. But
international, the knife guys internationally.
On the international side, in the Australian world, we've got some good trainers there, and we're associated with the Kali Sikaran guys. They in Europe, there's Johan Skolberg. He's phenomenal. Heavyweight stick fighting champion, but also understands the combatives. Andy Elliott in Australia. I've got a bunch of trainers. Thailand, Stefan Spies. So, and in the States, Mike Blackgrave, Aaron Chappell. Pretty good.
But Mark, you know what? And for the guys that's listening to this show at a later stage, one of the we've got some lag. Hello?
Hi. Sorry, I lost you there.
Sorry, yeah. So for the guys that's listening to the show afterwards, you know, I think one of the Mark just pointed something out in that if your instructor that you're subscribing to is a little island, probably don't give him money, because every good instructor realizes that he can't know everything. And like Mark is saying, there's certain guys that he talks to, and there's that guys that he goes to class with, because you can't know everything. It's not possible. And if you work with somebody and he's kind of not keen for you to train elsewhere, and he's not really training anywhere himself, you know, that's a big red light in terms of should you be giving this guy any of your hard-earned money?
Yeah, Ruan, you know, it's a difficult thing. It's my full-time living. A lot of guys do it part-time. So obviously it's beneficial if I get guys on my course, but it's also beneficial if they arrive on my course and they've been working with someone combative they're giving them some good skills. They advance quicker when they deal with me, you know. So obviously from a business point of view, you go, oh, geez, I'd really like that guy. Damn, this guy's teaching me in my backyard next week. What the frig's he doing here? But the point is, those guys, again, you don't do that. You don't do their fighting for them. And if he's been with a decent combative instructor, he's got another perspective, but there's a lot of overlap between what the guys are doing, especially in the gun world.
And I tend to my comment normally is, it doesn't matter. Like, there is definitely a wrong way of doing things, but I think just doing something these days is a big step into the correct direction, which a lot of people espouse combatives and they talk about it, and they try and they look tactical, and they look the part with their 5'11" pants and their Spydercos and their Oakley sunglasses. But the guy with his old SB1 and a stupid Okapi that's actually training daily and looking at his fitness. You made a comment earlier, like running away. You can't run away if you're not fit enough to run away. We believe big in fitness. So yeah, you like, in my point of view, anybody that's doing something is already a step in the right direction. Whereas a lot of people aren't doing anything; they're doing squat.
Yeah, and you know, many years ago with the knife world, when I got back to South Africa in 1998, I was going. We kind of, for a while, no one was doing decent edge weapon work in a sense. And as the other guys started coming on, I was like, geez, the guys are really doing stupid shit. And for me, there was a thing, how do I deal with this? Because they actually, and then a few years down the line, I said, you know what, they're actually bringing people into the industry. They're making them aware of it. You know, that guy's...
It's a journey, yeah.
So it's not, competition's a good thing. Like I said, we're always protective, but that's grown, and suddenly you realize, geez, there's actually some guy actually doing something pretty decent. I better step my game up. It's not a negative thing.
And you can't be everywhere all the time. It's just physically impossible.
Mark, you do something that, one thing that I picked up on what you do that's a little bit away from the norm. I see when I was doing all of the marketing and stuff for the show this upcoming week and a bit, I see you're probably the only guy I know that still runs leather holsters with thumb brakes. Please explain that to me.
That's my design, as a matter of fact. I've got it downstairs in my range bag. That has a Kydex insert inside there.
Oh, really? Okay, that makes a difference.
Okay.
Yes.
I like the positive click of Kydex, but when you got your gun tucked on you all that, I love it's like a bit of
comfort.
Comfortable. I developed a thing while Jeff Carter was still here. And I'm looking at relaunching that down the line, because I really like the comfort of leather. I carry my gun pretty much all day, every day. And,
we're talking guns, not fetishes here, Mark. Come on, keep it clean.
No,
we're kidding. No, we're just kidding. Yeah.
So, look at that. It's leather holster with a Kydex insert.
Oh, nice.
Mark, what's your carry setup? What do you carry? Give us a breakdown.
It really depends what I'm doing. I range from an appendix carry in summer to when my chiropractor says, listen, are you still carrying your gun there, to switching to a side carry in winter. I'm equally comfortable with both of those. I don't have a particular preference where the guy says, oh, you're going to mix yourself up if you carry it. We need consistency. Fuck, man, get your gun out of your holster and shoot. First thing, wherever it is. And then, sometimes in the work environment, your firearm has to switch because you have a work firearm, but you're not traveling there without. So suddenly switches to a bag on a chest rig. It is far from my normal carry, but the environment's going to dictate what I'm doing. All of them, again, everybody saw the guy get shot in his balls the other day, but, you do the same wrong thing when you draw on your hip, you're going to shoot yourself through the back of the popliteal artery in the back of your knee. One's just looks more traumatic than the other. Both you die. So fundamental safety, know your gun, clear your clothes. So I'm not pedantic. I've even carried a shoulder holster on occasion. And the guys go, oh, can you carry a shoulder holster? Well, I'm friggin' working and I can't have anything printing over here, so it's tucked under there. I'm not. Yeah. That's not my main environment. I'm primarily training, but I'm not don't have a problem with carry condition as long as it suits the needs that are happening.
The mission dictates the gear.
Exactly.
Have you seen, talking about leather, one thing that I'm really excited about, talking about gear,
keep it clean, Ron. Keep it clean, Ron.
Yes. I assume Kali Venter from Colorman Leather. I know he hangs around on False Bay as well.
Yes, I have seen it. I haven't dealt with him.
He's with the Cowboy Action guys.
To deal with him. And he made some very nice stuff, but I haven't seen anything lately. No.
First of all, his gun belts are awesome. His leather gun belts, properly stiffener inserted. He's bringing out a new one with a spring steel stiffener. It's awesome. But what I wanted to get to, he started making leather inside the waistband and appendix holsters. And I can't wait to get my hands on one of them. And I've been talking to him offline a bit, and I've seen some pictures. It looks flippin' awesome. I'm so tempted to, once he's ready to start producing and done with all his testing, to get hold of one of them, because I'm more built for comfort, Mark. I'm not built for high speed activities like running. And I've got, it prevents me from being kidnapped, but I carry some excessive weight. So I like the idea of a leather holster, like you explained, and some of the stuff that he's been doing. Yes, it's nice. And so I'm giving him a shameless punt now on the show, but have a look on some of the stuff that he's doing. Very, very nice. if you like leather holsters.
I think the whole thing with whatever you're carrying is you need to see that if you're carrying something like leather, inspect it regularly. Don't get lazy when it starts getting old. Get a new one, or check it out. Whatever you do, you got to your firearm and your holster together. They want is safety. So I'm a great fan of it. And that's why constant checkup on gear. My gear gets used up. I'm very hard on gear. So, holsters don't last me very long. They last me probably 2 years and they're done.
So, really? I suppose. Yeah.
So what's next for Mark Himman and MDW?
Sure. Going to be pumping.
What's the big plan?
Working very. Sorry.
What's the big plan?
The master plan. Well, first of all, we're going to be pushing a lot locally on the courses. Like I said, we do this full time, linking in with stuff. I don't think there's many guys that do it full time that are either not involved with. I keep my PFTC stuff up to date. I moderate and assess for one of the ranges over here, but that's not my thing. I don't make money off that. I don't think there's many guys that make their full living just off edge weapon and blade work. So I've got to keep pushing the market. Got some very nice customers in the CIT world. So that's nice. Developed a lot of new courses linked to vehicles. And then we're working with an overseas group on developing post-traumatic stress and training to reduce the effects. If the guys engage, afterwards improve their recovery time. But that's a project which we'll probably next year, probably in Europe and the States first, and then bring to South Africa.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
So guys, Mark, you work mostly out of False Bay, or do you? I know you travel internationally, but you travel. Is it the case of Have Gun will travel if guys want to book you?
Yeah, I do travel. I was up in Joburg about 2 weeks ago. So we did that. We did some courses over there. Did a range of courses there. You asked some of the guys we work with. I think the Fortis guys. I'm happy to work with them. They've been in the industry a long time. So I'm hopefully doing something with them in Durban in a little bit. So yeah, we travel locally. We travel a lot. Wherever, as long as they can get a group together.
Excellent. And minimum, what do you need on a group, Mark? How many people?
It depends. I normally work. It depends what type of course we're running, but normally from 12 to about 16 is our average firearms course. And then crazy, you teach some edge weapon. Depends what you're teaching. I ran a course in Norway last year where I had 120 people on the class. Crazy work. I did have 2 assistant instructors with me, but you arrived there, I was like, holy shit. So here we go.
That's quite a fair amount of people to train. Good grief.
But on firearms,
so what
between 12 and 16, and depending on the content of the course, whether I need a second range officer or not. Yeah.
Cool. So guys, what I'll do is I will gooi Mark's contact details, in the descriptions and stuff once everything goes live. And then, when everything goes onto the Facebook afterwards, when you get hold of him, Multi Dimensional Warriors is his Facebook page. And get hold of him. Guys, we are running into an hour and a half. I think we could probably keep this going, but then we're going to lose listeners. So any last thoughts, comments, golden nuggets of wisdom, Mark?
For the guys out there that they need to get training, get off your ass. Suddenly the guys are trying to buy guns now. It's not too late, but get off your butt and do it now. Put value in training. Gear's important, but training's first. And like you said, get back of the head with the rusty old Narinko one day with all your tactical gear on it. Skills and mindset first. Gear's important. Let it come in second. Invest in training.
Yeah, cool.
Lekker. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. I probably want to come do some training, maybe earliest October in Cape Town. So I'll definitely come and see you and Kelly, and let's do some fun stuff.
Chatting about getting some scrap vehicles for that. I think it's around the 5th of October there, and maybe running a full-on vehicle course.
Oh, that sounds glorious. I think we'll make a plan.
Share any so I've got to deal with the guys that's come on the show, with Arno and with Richie as well. So your shows, let us your courses, let us know, and we'll obviously advertise as much as I can, on Weekend Warrior as well. I might miss one or two here and there, but we try to do what we can from our side. So please let us know if your courses come up.
Yeah, please do.
And Robbie, thanks for meeting you. I know I just waffle. So
no, this is what we do. We drink whiskey and we talk. Is that an illegal beer, Mark? Oh no, that's terrible.
Oh no, just not that.
How dare you?
How dare you, Mark? How dare you? I was drinking dirty bath water, just for the record. Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to stay on while I end the broadcast, and then we will talk offline briefly. Thank you very much, guys. Have a glorious evening, and keep out for the for the sound only podcast. And once again, thank you to all our partners, Renegade Media, Ramon Cabernac and his crew, Everyday Carry South Africa, Morna L, Sparatus, Combative Concepts, Mark Iman and his guys. Thanks to all the guys always sharing. Appreciate it. Thanks very much for your time. You make it possible.
Woo-hoo.
And
cheers.
Cheers, hey. Bye.